Well, as Carla was mentioning, perhaps the real battle here in the fight for the Republican nomination would be Rick Perry versus Mitt Romney, at least if you look at the polls. And joining us now from Washington to talk about that matchup, David Drucker, who is staff writer for Roll Call. David, good to see you. And let's go right to it. Let's put it up on the screen. The latest Fox News poll just came out a couple of days ago. Rick Perry has jumped to a 7-point lead, 26% to Romney's 18%. Now, it is early, and there's still 4 more months before the first primaries and caucuses. But, David, would you give Perry the edge right now, and why?
Well, I'd give Perry the slight edge, Greg, and that's because he's a sitting governor with a good economic record. Texas has created more jobs than any other state in the country, I believe, and they've weathered the recession rather well, at least compared to the rest of the country. And he has one thing that Republicans, or I should say Republican primary voters, have been looking for, and that is somebody with an energetic personality, a sort of inspirational type of personality, and a lot of personal aggressiveness. And I think that's what was lacking in this race, at least from the point of view of Republican primary voters. I think that's why Michelle Bachmann was popular early on, and now she has fallen back a little bit because now Republicans can turn to a member of their party with a lot of energy that appeals to their hearts, not just their heads. But you know, somebody who has executive experience.
David, being a front runner has its risks. Is Perry suddenly going to have a bullseye on his back come Wednesday night during the GOP debate? At the end of the night, is he going to feel like a piñata?
Well, he already has a bullseye on his back, and we have a long way to go. As Mitt Romney learned 4 years ago when he was the front runner at this point, it's not always everything it's cracked up to be. And we also need to remember that this is a state-by-state process in the early going. So maybe Rick Perry wins Iowa if things were to unfold the way they look today. But Mitt Romney still has a really good shot to win New Hampshire. He's ahead there. South Carolina can be deceiving. You'd think automatically it goes to Perry, and I'd call him the front runner at this point. But if you have a couple of conservatives battling it out and South Carolinians are worried about electability and who can beat Barack Obama in the general, who's best positioned, Mitt Romney might be able to claim that mantle at this point, and that could give him a leg up in South Carolina. Then we move on to Florida, which I think is anybody's ball game and going to be very competitive. And so I think that however things look today, while it's no longer early in the race, it's too early to decide that the person who's #1 today is going to be #1 at the end of this process.
Let's talk a little bit more about Mitt Romney now that he's no longer the front runner, if you will. He's really getting out there trying to court the Tea Party, but they well know that Romney's a guy who championed state-run health care in Massachusetts when he was governor. He used to be pro-choice before he suddenly became pro-life, and he famously flip-flopped on a variety of issues, including climate change. Is his record incompatible with Tea Party principles?
Well, not necessarily. I think, first of all, let's take a look at the social issues aspect. That's not something most Tea Party activists are that concerned about. They're concerned with jobs and the economy. And Romney here has something to run on because of his private sector experience and the fact that he's not a career politician, even though he's been in the political arena now for about 10 years. And so I think it's going to be how he markets himself and how the various factions of the Tea Party universe feel about Mitt Romney and the rest of the candidates. I wouldn't write them off. The same way Mitt Romney is saying that health care was an experiment for Massachusetts only and would not be a fit for the U.S. nationally is the same thing Rick Perry is now saying about the DREAM Act in Texas that, of course, allows children of illegal immigrants to go to school there and to get state tuition prices. So these things might be a little bit more complicated than you think. And I'd point out, Greg, that the Tea Party is a significant faction of the Republican primary electorate. Any candidate who doesn't try and appeal to them for votes is going to have trouble. So Mitt Romney has to do it.
Sure, absolutely. It's the only way you can do it to survive. David Drucker of Roll Call. David, thanks very much. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Less than a week away from the 10th anniversary